Ahoy everyone, and welcome back once again to I Like Watches. A little bit of progress on the walls behind me. They're not finished, but they're definitely looking better. I want to put a few more bits and pieces up. Frank is back though with his spaceship. Say hello, Frank. I've had to turn the LED lights up a little bit as well. The last time I filmed one of these intros, it was a little bit dark in here. This does mean now, though, you've got to put up with a little bit of glare off the noggin around here somewhere, I think. When I was filming my tests, I saw a little bit of reflection up here, so I'm sure you'll be able to deal with it. I've had to live with it for 30 odd years or so I'm sure you guys will get over it. Now, did you know Baltic have 3 showrooms, one in New York, one in London, and one in Paris? And to celebrate and commemorate and I guess to raise awareness for these showrooms, they have just released 3 new very limited edition watches. Of course, they've sent me one to review for you guys. If you want one of these, I wouldn't hang around. They've only made 200 of each version and I suspect they're going to sell out pretty quick. So I've posted this video as quickly as I could after the end of the media embargo. Of course, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this cracking watch. So yeah, if you want one, don't hang about. Now, for those of you not that familiar with Baltic watches, it's a relatively new brand, started in 2016. They're based in France, but it is, well, quite an international, would you call it a micro brand? I really do think having 3 showrooms in 3 cities like London, Paris and New York elevates this brand to something beyond a micro brand. And that to me is impressive progress. Started in 2016, 3 showrooms in 3 big cities around the world. Internationally recognised, and there's a good reason why they're doing so well. They produce beautiful mechanical watches inspired by mid-20th century designs. And if you can't make it to one of their showrooms to check out their watches, of course you can watch videos like this online, or you can contact them and book an online presentation. How cool is that? Right, that's enough about Baltic. Let me tell you everything you need to know about this new release. It's called the Prismic, 3 stones, 3 cities, 3 watches, 200 of each version available. They haven't sent me one of those 200. They're all numbered, and mine is number 00 of 200. It looks like they've made a few extra press watches, which I think is a good thing to do because really they should be selling, given that they're this limited, all of their full production limited edition watches to you guys. So we have a green jade dial version to represent New York, a red agate dial version to represent London, and I've been sent the Paris edition, which has a lapis lazuli dial. Did I say that right? I'm trying. Now, while I show you some lovely pictures of this watch, I'm going to run through the specifications because, well, they're almost as impressive as the dials. Swiss movements, ETA 7001 hand wind movements inside these watches, beautifully finished movements as well. A mix of materials as well, 316L stainless steel and grade 5 titanium. Double domed sapphire crystal with internal AR coating. Only 30 meters of water resistance with these watches. That's not a surprise given the style. The caseback is a display caseback. Of course it is. Look at this movement. It's incredible. You're going to want to see this movement occasionally. It's a screwed down caseback with a few details on it. A beautifully finished caseback actually. There's even a fully polished beveled edge on that caseback and a mixture of finishing as well. And while I've got it flipped over, you can see the double-ended quick release spring bars on the solid ends of this mesh bracelet. It's available on a leather strap and on a mesh bracelet. Of course, when you flip the watch over, you can still see the mesh finish right up to the case, so it only appears solid underneath to house the quick release spring bars. Really nice mesh bracelet. This feels really nice in hand, beautifully finished. The buckle as well, signed, very nicely finished. It feels like a quality mesh strap. Now I say this quite often, but I'm going to say it again. If you are tempted to pick up this watch, my advice would be to always pick it up on a steel bracelet if you can, if there's any left. I think it's always worth the money. That is my advice, but of course, yeah, there are some people out there that probably prefer it on the leather strap. On the dial, you've got a sub-dial, that is the seconds, of course. Oh, beautifully finished hands. These hands are incredible. I love hands like this, a mix of brushing, polishing, super crisp, just beautiful Dauphine hands, aren't they? The applied indices are nice, but I think the hands steal the show for me, along with the dials, of course. The dials are incredible. And the case is also impressively finished. You've got 3 types of finish on this case: brushing, polishing, and a sort of bead blasted matte finish. Now, interestingly, the top of the lugs are polished. You've got a polished bezel framing the crystal, and then a sort of outer circular brushed bezel on the outside of that. But yeah, the top of the lugs polished, the sides of the lugs brushed. The mid case is that sort of bead blasted finish, and then framing that top to bottom, you've got some brushing, and you've got a couple of extra polished chamfered edges just above and below that bead blasted mid case. They've really put some time into this case, haven't they? Clearly. And I'm not surprised, to be honest. They've tried to make 3 very, very special watches to celebrate their 3 showrooms, and they've clearly put a lot of time and effort into these watches. They've chosen some interesting materials for the dials, even titanium in the case as well. Yeah, they're clearly trying to make a statement with these watches, and I think they've succeeded. And despite the prices, I really don't think it's going to take too long for these watches to sell out. What do they cost, I hear you ask? Well, if you want this watch on a leather strap, it's €1,250. If you want it on this bracelet, it's an extra €60, which I think is very reasonable. But the watch then is €1,310. And if you are going to spend that sort of money on a watch like this, you're probably wondering, well, are there any weaknesses? There are a couple, actually. The crystal in the Caseback isn't sapphire crystal. I'm a little bit disappointed by that, I'm not going to lie. The crystal in the Caseback doesn't touch any surfaces when you put the watch down, so it's highly unlikely to be prone to scratching. But I'd still like to see a couple of pieces of sapphire crystal on this watch. And hand winding this watch isn't the easiest given the crown's size and location. It doesn't drop below the case at all. It's not the biggest crown. It's not impossible or even difficult to wind. It's just not the quickest or most comfortable winding action. I do also sometimes find watches with 3 different types of metal finishing I just think it's a little bit too much. I think the bead blasted element on the sides of the case is unnecessary. I think I probably would have preferred that just to be a brushed steel. But that's a sort of personal thing. That's just my personal opinion. And I do think the applied indices could be just a little bit more crisp. I think the hands are so good that they just make the applied indexes look a little bit soft. I do also think some people will complain about the 30 meters of water resistance. That's not an issue for me because generally I don't get my watches wet. I certainly don't get watches like this wet, so 30 meters of water resistance means it's splash proof. You can wash your hands, do the dishes, that sort of stuff with this watch on. I'm not going to wear this in the shower or go swimming with it, so yeah, 30 meters of water resistance to me is no problem, and it's that that's enabled them to keep the thickness down, to be honest. As soon as you start to add a higher water resistance rating, you need to start using thicker materials and thicker crystals, and of course that adds depth to the watch. Now I'm going to leave it there because I think I've told you everything you need to know about this particular watch. I've also given you some details on why I think Baltic is an incredible watch brand. If you haven't done so already, head over to their website and sign up to their newsletter. I think this is a brand we need to pay more attention to, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to reviewing more watches in the future. Right guys, yeah, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it.